Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. So today we're going to take a look at one of my favorite PG movies from the late 70s, and that is Tourist Trap, which I have here on Blu-ray. Um, so yeah, this is a movie that I saw, I believe, on Shudder or Netflix. It was Shudder about a year and a half ago, and I instantly just loved it. And so I went out and bought it. This is the first time I've actually watched this Blu-ray. There's only so many hours in the day with all the horror movies I'm collecting and streaming services I have. But anyway, so yeah, this is a movie I really, I knew I really enjoyed. So let's just go ahead and get into my review based on my most recent watch of this for this series. So let's get my notes here. So Tourist Trap. First, I'll give my setup, premise, and cast as normal, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will be spoiler free. But Tourist Trap is a 1979 American supernatural slasher film directed by David Schmoller. The film follows a group of young people who stumble upon a roadside museum run by a lonely eccentric, where an unknown killer with telekinetic powers begins to murder them. Schmoller co-wrote the script with J. Larry Carroll, who served as a producer for the film alongside famous producer-director Charles Band. So basically, the movie opens with Eileen and her boyfriend Woody are driving through the desert when their car gets a flat tire. Woody goes to find a gas station. Their friends Becky, Jerry, and Molly are traveling in a different vehicle. They reach Eileen and all drive off to collect Woody. Woody has found a gas station, but it appears deserted. He enters the back room, but becomes trapped by an unseen force. Various mannequins appear and cackle as objects fly off shelves at him until a metal pipe impales and kills him. The others find a tourist trap, but their vehicle mysteriously breaks down. Jerry tries to fix the car, and the girls go skinny dipping. Mr. Slauson, the owner of the tourist trap, appears holding a shotgun. He seems embittered by the decline of the tourist trap since the highway was moved away. The girls apologize for trespassing. Slauson offers to help Jerry with the car, but insists the group go to his house with him to get his tools. There, they see the tourist trap, animated waxwork figures. Eileen is curious about a nearby house, but Slauson insists that the woman should stay inside the museum. Slauson takes Jerry to fix their car. Eileen leaves to find a phone in the other house. There she finds mannequins and a stranger wearing a grotesque mask that appears behind her. Various items in the room move on their own accord, and the scarf Eileen is wearing strangles her to death. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise of this movie. Seems pretty basic enough on the surface. Cast wise, we have Chuck Connors as Mr. Slauson, Shalair Colby, Sh- Shalar Colby as Davy, Joycelyn Jones as Molly, John Van Ness as Jerry, Robin Sherwood as Eileen, and Tanya Roberts as Becky. So yeah, this is a really interesting movie. It's kind of a combination of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Carrie and or Psycho, and why can't I think of a House of Wax? So it's definitely a combination of House of Wax, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then I would say Carrie. But I've heard some people say Psycho, and that's a fair assessment as well. It's a very interesting film because not only is it a slasher film, but it's also a supernatural film. So that's why it's considered a supernatural slasher. So you have elements of slasher, but you also have elements of a supernatural nature. So it's yeah, that combination there really makes it a unique film. So yeah, I really enjoy this film. It's not the best horror movie ever made, but for being PG and for coming out in '79, I think it's very underrated for what it is. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with my pros. And like I was touching on, the very unique and different type of slasher and horror movie that this is. This isn't a Friday the 13th movie. It's not just a generic general slasher where somebody's going around and killing people. They are, but there's a lot more to it than that. And that's where you get the combination of House of Wax as well as Carrie, in my opinion. There's definitely a supernatural element. having it be like a combination of those makes it a very unique watching experience. That the first time I watched it, I wasn't sure what the hell was going on. It's like, wait a minute, there's somebody going around killing people, but at the same time, how are all these things moving? And there's like two different horror things going on here. So yeah, it's very unique in that regard. Then next, you got to talk about Chuck Connors as Mr. Slauson. I really think he holds the movie together. I mean, I just think he does a great job in this movie, believing him as both being charming, strange, and creepy all at the same time, and he really pulls it off. He's one of those actors that can make you feel sorry for him or be sympathetic for him at the same time. He could creep the hell out of you like a few seconds later. He's a very natural actor, and funny enough, I didn't realize he was actually a professional athlete first. He played Major League Baseball for just a couple of years in the late 40s, early 50s. But yeah, he never took any acting classes or anything, but he didn't really need to because some actors are just, and actresses are just naturally gifted. And he's certainly one of those. And that's never more evident than in this movie. Um, he just makes the movie so much more effective because of his great performance. Um, Also, the movie has really creepy atmosphere while also being kind of weird at the same time. So it's not like an overly dark movie, something like The Lodge or, it's not like a totally serious or something like Martyrs, maybe, where there isn't what's the word not longevity. There's some humorous or lighter moments to the movie, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. While it's still being a horror movie, and this movie's kind of the definition of that because there's some weird moments, some weird and strange music cues that are used. But at the same time, it's definitely got a lot of creepy atmosphere in the movie. Um, but it makes for a really engaging watch. It's not a hard movie to watch at all. And some of that's also helped by the fact that the movie's very well directed, really well paced. It's a tight 90-minute, efficient 90-minute movie. It doesn't go on too long. It's just right for this type of movie. Um, Very effective and creepy visuals in the movie, especially as it relates to mannequins and waxed figures in different scenes. There's really solid cinematography when they're outside, like in the woods and stuff in this movie. Yeah, if you're not somebody that's creeped out by mannequins or dolls or like wax figures, then you probably won't find this very frightening. But I don't know, as somebody, the creepiest episode from the original Twilight Zone series to me, for example, or certainly one of the top three, is from the first season, which is, oh shit, now the episode is just going to escape me. Oh, After Hours. Yeah, I got it. Yay. The After Hours is one of the great Twilight Zone episodes, and that episode's so creepy, not just because of Anne Francis's performance, but also the way they show the mannequins, the way they shoot them, just the creepiness that's involved in general when it comes to mannequins. And this movie does a great job of that as well. And then actually, in this movie, it's even creepier because they actually make sounds and their eyes and their mouths move, and so it's just very creepy to me, very scary in that regard. All the kills in the movie are different. None of them are repeated by the same object or in the same way. So that I definitely give it points for that, especially in a slasher movie, because a lot of times we just see a knife go into somebody like four different times, four different characters. So I enjoyed that. That makes for a fun watch. It also has some pretty nice twists and turns, especially towards the halfway towards the end of the movie, which I think work pretty well enough anyway to add to the tension and the creepiness and trying to figure out exactly how this movie's going to end or where it's going to go. I'm not going to say the movie's totally unpredictable or anything like that. I'm sure some people probably saw the big twist coming when the movie started, basically, or like the first 20 minutes. I wasn't one of them, but I could understand how somebody could because I just wasn't thinking along the terms that the movie would go. Um, Again, great performance by some of our characters as well. I don't want to give too much away because this is a spoiler-free review, but I did enjoy the twists and turns in this movie. Um, Great music and score in this movie effectively portrays what's going on in different scenes, both from an eerie and creepy standpoint to a more light and goofy moment in the movie. Like the very end scene before ending credits. Um, the practical effects, I think, work pretty well, especially for being 1979 and being a low budget movie. That's one thing that I should mention. This movie was made for like $350,000, I think, which even for 1979 was definitely a low budget movie. I thought they did well with the practical effects. I mean, the eyes, the eyes that move back and forth with inside the mannequins, the animatronics that they use with the wax figures and the mannequins. It all just the flying objects moving. I thought were fairly convincing. Yeah, it just all kind of worked for me. And then finally, I got to mention our final girl here, or final girl, which is I don't know if that term had come out yet. Well, I mean, you had Laurie the year before in Halloween, but I still don't think it was a titled term yet. But Jocelyn Jones, who I guess was the one actor or actress in this movie that had the most experience, like the most being like polished or performed, even more so than Chuck Connors, who I think was the more naturally gifted actor, as I said, than Jocelyn Jones. But Jocelyn Jones was the one that had the most training and stuff. I know there's some documentary features where the director talks about how Jocelyn Jones was the one sort of telling him how to deal with actors and stuff because she kind of came from that world of being classically trained. So that was interesting. I think she does a pretty good job in this movie as a final girl. She's got a little bit of an arc, kind of descends into madness towards the end. Obviously, it's a really bizarre and creepy ending. Obviously, that plays into that. But overall, of all the characters, she was the one that I could sort of relate to the most. That I thought you could tell was a little bit more trained as an actress than her friends, the other young people in the group. Even Tanya Roberts, who of course most people know from that 70s show, like 20 years later, 25 years later. She looks very good in this movie. I'm not sure it's the best acting performance, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, so those are my pros for this movie. Really enjoyed Tourist Trap. Couple of cons. You do get a lot of the typical slasher cliches, especially as it relates to decision making that characters make, as we so often see in slasher movies, making dumb decisions. They should just be wearing a sign that says "Kill me," basically, because it ultimately leads to their demise, whether it be splitting up or going into places they were told not to go, but they go anyway. All those type of cliches are definitely present here. Um, Also, this is a PG movie, so it's not going to be for everybody. It doesn't have any nudity, even though there's a skinny dipping scene early in the movie. You don't get to see anything; they're all submerged in water. So no nudity, no gore. There's a little bit of blood on a couple of the kills, but nothing really. And then there's not even any swearing really, no f bombs or anything. So if you're somebody that only enjoys horror movies with a lot of gore and swearing and some nudity, then this movie probably won't be for you. I'm not somebody like that. I mean, I don't mind those things. I'm not offended by them or anything, but I like a horror movie based on its merits, and based on their merits, this movie works whether it's G, PG, or R or NC-17. But I do want to mention that because it might not be for everyone. It is PG. They didn't know it was going to be PG when they made this movie. It wasn't their intention to make it a PG movie. It's a little bit like Poltergeist in that regard. They thought they were going to get an R rating just because of some of the visuals that they were showing and some of the things happening with the deaths and stuff. And they ended up getting a PG. So, like I said, this is one of the best PG horror movies I've ever seen. It's definitely right there with the original Poltergeist from 1982 and some anthologies, especially Amicus anthologies that are PG, but especially for this time, this is a great PG horror movie. If your goal is to be scared or creeped out with a decent acting and really effective music and creepy scenes. If you're somebody that needs the gore and the nudity and the blood and stuff, though, then you're not going to find it here really. So I just wanted to give that caveat. That's really all I've got for cons. For what this is, I do think it's an underrated movie. I don't care what its rating is. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I just think this is a fantastic late 70s slasher supernatural movie. Call it what you will. I like the fact that it's a supernatural slasher. We don't get a lot of those, although I'm sure there's a few more out there than I've seen or that I know about or I'm thinking of right now. But it just this guy creeped the hell out of me with this mask. And just very effective movie for me. So 9 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below, guys, if you've seen Tourist Trap from 1979. What your thoughts are on the movie. Do you not like it as much? Do you like it as much? Why not? Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos for the rest of this series. And be sure to hit the subscribe button as well. so you don't miss any of my great horror content coming up over the next, well, rest of this year and beyond, basically. So thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Stay scared. Bye.